and has been a huge IEFA champion for us. And we love working with her, but we're going to let her just share all the wonderful stuff that the Historical Society has for you guys. So take it away, Martha Kohl.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I'm actually going to jump right into a strategy. Can you see my screen?
Yep.
Everyone see my screen? And I'm going to give you a minute to look at this image. And if you want to look at it closer, you can go to this link that I just put in the chat, so you can zoom in and look at it for a minute. Just examine it for a minute. And I'm going to try to make this interactive because I really hate Zoom. So hopefully I can get you guys talking, or at least chatting in the chat. So let me just start with a question. What's going on here? And feel free to unmute yourself and answer or type something in the chat, either way. But what's going on here in this image? A battle. Zach says a battle. What do you see that makes you say that, Zach? And come on, go ahead and unmute yourselves, and we'll talk. We're gonna.
So just so you know, Martha, we do keep people muted, so they will have to go through the
Oh shoot.
through the chat.
Oh no.
Only because if people forget to mute, then we get all kinds of sound issues, and we have this many people.
Oh.
But can you see there are people putting stuff up there in the chat?
I do. And so Megan said, I noticed a second person behind or around the horse. So I'm assuming you mean this right here. And then Lacey said ledger art. And so what do you see that makes you say that it's ledger art, Lacey? New message. How do I get to my new message? A woman in battle, which is unique, says Adrian Tailfeathers. Is this Buffalo Calf Road woman? So Adrian is thinking that this figure is a woman and is wondering if it's a specific woman. And Lacey said, in answer to my question about what she saw that made her think that it was ledger art, it was the background with the lines that looks like it is ledger art, and she recognizes the style. So she's noticing the paper that it's on, and that's a defining quality of ledger art. And Maggie said, I didn't see the other person on the horse with the gun until just now. Interesting. So the other person on the horse with a gun is this person, I'm assuming, behind here. You're seeing this guy. Oh, you're seeing this gun here and this head here. And that was something that someone else noticed too, is that second person. What more can we find? Megan says, I'm curious about the items in the upper right. And I'm guessing that you're referring to this, Megan. And these items up here. And she says, yes. Zach says they look like arrows, which is why I said it looks like a battle. Okay, so Zach is thinking that these items in the upper right might be arrows, and that's why he thought it was a battle. And Mike is saying she's brave and determined to save her brother. And what do you see that makes you say that, Mike? And
Well,
someone else is asking if these are arrows. Go ahead, Mike.
it looks like her brother. I recognize
Who looks like her brother, Mike?
the guy she's saving.
This person right here?
Hmm.
It looks like her brother, and because of the facial or features, or
I just got a feeling.
you just got a feeling. Stephen or Steph says, so someone asked all right, I think the items in the right are gunshots. Someone thinks that these maybe are gunshots. And someone is asking, is that a village? And I'm assuming that you're talking about these items in the upper right. So Helen, tell me if I'm wrong. So it sounds like some people are thinking it's gunshots. Some people are thinking maybe it's a village. And someone says that they agree with Steph. I wonder if the bullets are missing the rider and the passenger. So think that these are bullets that are missing the rider and the passenger. And someone is noting that she isn't ducking for cover. That looking, I'm assuming, at her posture being upright here. Like the rider is impervious to bullets. So because she's not ducking, there's a sense that the rider can't be killed by a bullet. Is that, am I getting your thought right, Al? Is that what you're, yeah, okay. What more can we find? The guns are red. So you're noticing here that these guns are red. And the one on the horse too. Oh, okay, yeah. So these guns and these guns are all red. And Maggie Thomas says maybe she's an angel or something. That's why she can't be shot, but she can save. So she is looking at the person's posture, I'm assuming, and going to that idea that maybe she's impervious to bullets and is wondering if she's an angel. And Samantha is asking, is this the Battle of the Rosebud? And Samantha, what do you see that makes you say that? Okay, Sierra, well, you're welcome to join us, Sierra. We're looking at this picture. Oh, and so, AKA the girl who saves her brother, Mike's comment. So you're looking at prior knowledge and wondering if this is a depiction based on your prior knowledge of that history, that this is the Battle of the Rosebud. Is that correct? And someone says they're curious about the design on the shield, and I'm assuming where my arrow is, that's the shield you're thinking? You're looking at? Is that, do I have that right? Yeah, okay. And you're wondering about that design. What more can we find? So Dustin is noticing the expressions on the soldiers' faces, some angry and some happy. What do you see that makes you say that some of them are angry and some of them are happy? And someone is asking, is that a face I see behind the horse's neck holding the reins? So you're wondering if this is a face and that is a face of someone holding the reins here. And like I said, there's a link so you can blow up this picture and look at it a little more closely, because I know it can be really hard to look over Zoom. The eyes of the bottom soldier are remarkable. So you're looking at this person's eyes and that you're thinking that person is either happy or angry. And Steph, I'm wondering about what looks like a highlighted part by the feathers. So you're noticing these feathers and maybe this yellow line, that highlighted part. And okay, so this soldier, you're seeing that the eyes make him look angry or angry. And there's another person holding a reins and a rifle. So I think you're looking at this person here and noticing that that person is holding a rifle here and the reins there. And someone noticed that the horse is white. And I'm trying to go back. And so you're noticing the white horse. So thank you for looking at this picture closely with me. I'm going to pause kind of my general presentation about our IEFA resources to talk a little bit about the strategy that I just used there. It's called, oh, and I don't know about ledger art, but it looks like the upright could be rider could be protecting the lawyer. Oh, I'm so glad you chimed in, Destiny. So you're thinking this rider could be protecting this person? Do I have that right? Am I interpreting your comment correctly? An ancestor, yes. So you're thinking that this person could be an ancestor or a spirit, kind of going back to that other earlier statement that someone made about it being that this rider might be impervious to bullets and is maybe an angel or something. Am I interpreting your comment correctly? And that spirit or angel or ancestor is protecting this person. Yeah, the one who's down here with the gun and holding on to the reins. All right. So I hope that you saw how much more detail we got when we stopped and looked, and how you kind of, one person, and every time I do this, I notice something different. Like I had never noticed, and I think I pointed out the wrong thing, but when someone said they wonder if there's a village, I'm wondering if you meant this right up here as opposed to this here, but these look like, but I had never noticed that before. So I always see something new. I hadn't, when I, or either, yeah, when people point this. So what this technique is called visual thinking strategies. And I'm wondering if anyone is already familiar with the technique or uses it in their classroom. So if you do, go ahead and type that in. I just want to talk a little bit about it. It's really simple, but it's really powerful. The teacher asks, you notice I only asked 3 questions. I asked, what's going on here? I asked, and then I listened carefully to every answer and then acknowledged it by paraphrasing. And I tried really hard not to praise. I tried to facilitate linking opinions and helping them, kind of produce a variety of viewpoint. And when you pointed out something, I asked you to find evidence to back up your claim. So what do you see that makes you say that? And then I also asked to encourage further discussion by saying, what more can you find? And so those are the only 3 questions. And it sounds like Samantha does this with American Indian Movement Reclamation of Alcatraz photos, which I can imagine would be really, really powerful. So I'm gonna, and I'll say that the paraphrasing for me is the hardest part, because I think especially as teachers, you always want to say, oh, good job. Oh, wow, yeah, you know, and praise, as opposed to just paraphrasing. It's really hard for me not to say good point or interesting, but you want to not do that so that everyone's opinions are equal. It's called visual thinking strategies is what it's called. And I'll say that it aligns really closely with Common Core reading standards and assessment. So we're going to try visual thinking strategies on another image now. We're going to try it one more time. So I'm going to give you a minute to look at this picture. And again, if you want to zoom in, you can open it in this link. You just have to scroll down from the other picture. So both pictures are on the same page. So what's going on here? A chaotic battle. And what do you see that makes you say that it's a chaotic battle, Lindsay? Confusion. You're noticing confusion. Megan is noticing there's more violence in this image. It feels like the figures are in mid-movement. And a white man on a horse as the focal point. So you're noticing this man here, I'm assuming, as the focal point. And Destin said that just by looking at the picture, you could see desperation, even, and then you read the title, desperate. You notice that word desperate here. Okay, and when I asked why chaotic, Lindsay said it's because horses and people are going in every direction. So there's some going this way and people going that way, in all the different directions. And it looks like the natives are showing fear. So you're noticing that the natives seem to be showing fear. And what do you see, or hiding almost, covering from bullets? So you're noticing that the natives seem to be hiding from the bullets, or showing fear. And Maggie says a battle that looks like they are after the general who's in the middle of the picture. So Maggie, it seems you think this person is a general and everyone is after him. And what do you see that makes you say that he's a general? It's hard to do on Zoom. Destiny is noticing the white horse. There's maybe what, and makes you think that he's a general. And Crook, this is the battle previous to the Battle of the Little Bighorn. So you're going on prior knowledge. Okay, what do we got? Instead of a warrior being pursued by soldiers, the soldiers are surrounded by native warriors. So you're comparing this view to the one that we saw earlier. And noticing soldiers being surrounded by warriors as opposed to warriors being pursued by soldiers. And the horses look wholly white. So you're thinking that the color of the horses, particularly, I guess this horse, is symbolic. And if I get any of this wrong, you can let me know. And then a guy on the right is about to shoot Custer. So you're looking at this person with an arrow pointing at this person who you're thinking is Custer. Is that correct? And then someone says, yes, whiteness is centered versus darkness of the indigenous people and their horses. So you are seeing indigenous people on dark horses and that they're dark skinned, and you're seeing this as a symbolic statement, if I have that right. And then someone points out that it's Crook. They think instead of Custer, this person is Crook. Oh, and the reason that maybe he's the general is because he's on the white horse and he's riding and he's the center of the action. So that is what's giving you a sense that he's the general, General Crook. You guys were typing fast and furious. That's great. What more can we find? Since it's Crook, I do think this is the same battle as seen as a ledger art from a Euro-American centric perspective. So Samantha is drawing on prior knowledge, I'm guessing. What do you see that makes you think that, or, you know, in comparing these two? I'm assuming it's based on prior knowledge of the battles, or is there another reason? So both pieces have a sense of persecution just from opposite sides. And why do you say that they both have a sense of persecution? What do you see that makes you say that this has a sense of persecution and that the other one does? And while you type that, I'll move on to Louise, who says a person on the back right has a gun, so maybe they're getting weapons from the invaders. So you see someone on the back right with a gun. Oh, right here, I'm guessing. There's a person with a gun and you're noticing that gun and you're wondering how he got that gun and thinking that it might be from the invaders. And Destiny thinks the soldiers are winning, their flag is still raised and all their bayonets are still up and ready to fight. So she's wondering if this is a sense that the soldiers are being victorious because, and she's pointing to the evidence of the flag and the bayonets, that they're ready to fight. And Samantha says, yeah, she's drawing on prior knowledge. She's a history teacher. She's seen them together before. There's a connotation of nobility in the drawing of the white men. And I noticed that the people falling are native, not white. So you're noticing that this person's falling, that all the people who are falling seem to be native. And can you explain what you see that makes you think there's this connotation of nobility in the drawing of the white men? Okay, and left, Louise left. What did Louise say? A person on the back left has it. Oh, you're noticing this person here that has the gun. Got it. All right. And thinking maybe they traded for that. Steph says the first piece had a lineup of soldiers shooting someone in the back. The second piece has a small group surrounded. So that is, which gives each a sense of persecution. So that's the evidence that they're both kind of being persecuted, but different sides. And in terms of the sense of nobility, it's that the white men are upright, that they're not leaned over. And Maggie Thompson says, I also see several natives holding a gun. So I think you're looking at maybe this gun and this gun. And I'm not sure if I'm missing any other guns, but that's a couple of natives holding a gun. General Crook's horse is the brightest white. This will stand out. All the other white horses are muted. They're not as important as General. So you're really seeing him as a central figure of the painting or the etching. Yes, left and right natives have guns. And then that the natives, and you're noticing the natives are slouched. And again, that gives kind of the difference in who is the hero. Am I getting that right? That's your evidence that it's, yeah. So that you're seeing the white people as noble because they're upright, or the paint, that this painting is trying to depict that, and the natives as slouched, and so less noble. Great. So like I said, this is I hope you see the power of this technique. It's again, very simple. You ask these questions, you listen carefully to every answer, you acknowledge them by paraphrasing, you try to facilitate by linking opinions, and encourage further discussion by keeping it open-ended. And as I said before, you only have these 3 questions. And my favorite question, well, actually, I love all of these questions, but you start with this, what's going on here, because it opens the discussion. It suggests that the image is about saying, so you don't say, what do you see? You say, what's going on here, so that it's trying to encourage this idea of finding stories, of finding symbolism. And then I love this question, what do you see that makes you say that? One of our English language arts standards, I think, is, and also our new social studies standards skills, is making evidence-based claims. And Helen, I'm pretty sure I put this in the folder that you have access to, but I will make sure that it is in the folder. I think so. There is, yes, I will post my slides. There's a folder that Jennifer gave me to put up resources that you can access after the talk, and I will make sure, but yes, I will post the slides if they're not in there. That's a skill some politicians need to learn. It's a skill we all need. I knew a professor that used to say opinions are like noses. Everyone has one and they all smell or they all stink, right? But evidence-based claim is different than an opinion, and that's what we really want to teach our students to do, is you have to find evidence to back up your claim. And then what more can you find kind of pushes that revealing of details. I hadn't noticed, for example, the Indians with guns. I mean, the longer you look, this idea that we really need to make a thorough examination. It's very easy, especially if you're a word person like me, to just like look at a picture and then move on. I want to get to the context, but really doing that close reading, which is again, an English language arts skill that you're trying to teach. It's teaching close reading without text. So it's really scaffolding those close reading skills that you want students to learn. And finally, paraphrasing, as I said, it underscores that makes sure everyone hears the comment, shows that listening and understanding to others are important, and helps to link these ideas. And as I mentioned, it is the hardest part of this, because what you want to do is, oh, good, when someone is right, or whatever, and elevate that. Yeah, Megan, that scaffolding close reading without text, I think it's really important. And there's been some great work done, kind of, if you, someone did this great work at looking at how analyzing images can really help students learn these English language arts skills. So like I said, I think that it's a technique that really helps students. It's worth incorporating, and you can do it with all sorts of images. You can also do it with poetry. Apparently, there's some med schools that use it to teach radiology students how to read x-rays. So it's really about learning how to look and how to communicate and how to make those evidence-based claims. All right, so back to the images. As some of you who already figured out, and I would say that if you're a purist and you do visual thinking strategies, you're supposed to leave it. You're supposed to just have the students look at an image, analyze that image, and not talk about the context of that image, and not tell them the right answer, or not tell them the context. And the idea behind that is you don't want students thinking that there's a right answer and a wrong answer. You want to make sure that all students feel comfortable participating, and this is the kind of activity where you will get students who don't talk in class to talk in class. I've done it, because it's all right there for you, and everyone's evidence-based claim is equal to everyone else's evidence-based claim. So a purist in terms of visual thinking strategies says, never give context then to the image. I'm not a purist. I think it's a great way to get people to look at it. I mean, I see their point, but in this particular lesson that I'm taking this from, we use it as an introduction to get people to look closely at these two different points of view, and then provide a little background. And so in this lesson, is, you can find it in two places. One is in our new fourth grade textbook, Montana, A History of Our Home. And another is in our footlocker, one of our hands-on history footlockers, Montana's First People, Essential Understandings. Helen, the people who invented VTS would say, no, don't give them the date, don't give them the artist, don't give them anything. And sometimes what we'll do is we'll take one image and we'll have them VTS it like a Charlie Russell picture, and then we'll use a different Charlie Russell picture to talk about the artist and his history. So a purist says you don't give them anything. It is simply an activity of close reading. But like I said, I'm a historian. I'm not, I pretty much always, when I use it, end up giving people background. In the lesson that this comes from, and someone is saying, looking at them together, I noticed that one is a long-term situation and one is short-term event, more depth as you study longer. And yeah, that is exactly right. The more you look, the closer you look, the deeper you can understand it. And that is the power of this technique. Anyway, we'll tell them a little bit about what's generally known as the Great Sioux War of 1876-77, although I'd say there's been a little pushback starting about that nomenclature. Why are we calling it the Great Sioux War? But that's still generally what it's called. And basically, the US wanted ownership of the Black Hills. Maybe you all know this already. And the Lakota and Northern Cheyenne, the Sioux and the Northern Cheyenne refused to give up their claims to the territory. And the war had many battles, and the most famous was the Battle of the Little Bighorn, which I think some people reference, where the Sioux and the Northern Cheyenne defeated the 7th Cavalry, which was led by Custer. But even though they had won that really important battle, they were ultimately forced onto reservations. 8 days before that battle was another battle, and that was the battle between the forces of General Crook and Northern Cheyenne and Lakota warriors led by Crazy Horse. And among the Northern Cheyenne, the battlefield became known as where the girl saved her brother. And I think some of you recognized this painting, and this is a picture of Buffalo Calf Road woman. She's the girl, and she was a young mother, and she rode onto the battlefield after soldiers had shot her brother's horse. And amid a shower of arrows and bullets, She helped her brothers onto her horse and carried him to safety. 39 Sioux and Northern Cheyenne warriors died in that battle, and another 63 were wounded. But despite these losses, they believed that they had won the battle. And this victory helped them rally their warriors a week later to fight at the Little Bighorn. General Crook did not call the battlefield where the girl saved her brother. He called it the Rosebud Battlefield or the Rosebud Battle because it took place along Rosebud Creek. And 10 of his men died and 21 were wounded. And he insisted that he won the battle because at the end of the fighting, he held the field. Other US military officers criticized him later for not pursuing the Sioux and Cheyenne and forcing them to move away from their camp. So these two pictures show the same battle, right? And I think several of you picked up the fact that who was persecuted changed, right? So who were the bad guys and who were the good guys, you know, changed, right? So in this case, these are the people who are shooting and she's the hero. And in this case, you know, he's the hero on his white horse. We know the one on the left was drawn by a Northern Cheyenne artist, but we don't have the artist's name. And it shows Buffalo Calf Road woman in the hail of bullets. And she's wearing an elk tooth dress. Her brother comes in sight, wears a war bonnet. And, you know, if we weren't on Zoom, I'd ask you, but I think we already talked about it too, who the hero is. And she's really the hero of this, of the drawing. And, you know, the bad guys are these guys. And then the one on the right is called Surrounded, Desperate Charge of General Crook's Cavalry at the Battle of the Rosebud. It was an engraving created by John Karst after a drawing created by an artist named James Taylor. They were both Euro-American artists. And again, the hero in this one is the guy on the white horse, and all the bad guys are the Indians attacking them. So two very different perspectives on a battle. And someone is saying that her great-grandfather homesteaded on battlefields, on the battleground, and donated to the state. Oh yeah, that's such a great story. Yeah, and it is a great site to visit. So if we were in person, I would have you do a pair share, but we can't do that. So maybe we can get some more conversation. Oh, the state park is named Rosebud Battlefield State Park. Yeah. Oh, wait, I didn't go through all my slides. Anyway, this is a picture of Custer, the Little Bighorn Battlefield and Custer National Cemetery and the monument to the Indian warriors there. So I thought I had, well, wait, I thought, here we go. All right. So I'm not going to have you do this because you guys did this here, I think, unless you want to. But no, I am gonna. We're gonna type in the chat and we're gonna type about these questions. How did perspective or point of view shape the way each side thought about the battle and the war, the pictures and the name of the battlefield? So those are your questions for looking at perspective. And someone's saying they'd like to see it renamed. Yeah. So how did perspective, point of view shape the way each side thought about the battle and the war? How did perspective shape these two pictures? And how does perspective shape the name of the battlefield? So go ahead and type me some answers. The native perspective was personal. They were fighting for their homes and their family. And And yeah, and so that, yeah, was a very personal perspective, and they both sides thought they won. Was another how perspective shaped, yeah, that their understanding of the battle, is they both thought that they had won the battle. I can tell that each image had their own savior. I thought the horse in the second one was wholly white. There's definitely something divine about the victor in both. In the first, the woman is upright. And did I do something wrong? I did something. I'm not sure what I did. I lost you my PowerPoint. There we go. So you can see the pictures. Yeah, so she looks serene. So she's kind of the savior, and this is holy white horse. And so the perspective on who is the good guy is really shaping the artwork. Yeah. How about, what do you think the battlefield should be called on maps and history books when we teach it? In the first picture, the perspective seems like the rider was outnumbered. Yeah, so it's really feeling like there's more soldiers than her. And so, and it only, you know, she's the only woman there. Yeah. So now I can say yeah, because we're not doing BTS anymore. I can give positive feedback. That's interesting. Wouldn't it be interesting if both of these images were on historical markers along with these questions? Yeah, that would be very cool. If you look at the opposing force in each, they look the same. In the first, the soldiers are all looking the same. And in the second, the natives are all looking the same. I hadn't noticed that, but yeah, for sure, they're identical. So you're kind of, in some ways, dehumanizing the enemy. They're just the enemy, but there's individuality among your, on your side, your individuals. And on the other side is kind of just a mass of enemy. It kind of gives you a sense of how perspective shapes. Oh, that's yeah, a great social action project for a class. Yeah, you could work with the Park Service and do some interpretation. That would be super cool. Anyone else have a comment on what the battlefield should be called? On maps or Lacey, yeah. The one of the woman on the horse seems more spiritual in a way, like she has good medicine. Is what oh wait, I didn't mean to bring that up. And the left is more organized and clear, and the right emphasizes chaos. So yeah, it does feel very chaotic. So I wonder how that reflects the perspectives of the artists. I'm wondering, I want to bring this over. I'm going to bring the chat over. So, and someone thinks they should name it after the sister. So we should change that. I want to, so, am I going to get to, anyone else? Why is it called Rosebud? Because it's on Rosebud Creek. So it's the name because of the creek. Wait, I didn't want to do that. So, yeah. But of course, the Northern Cheyenne didn't call Rosebud Creek, at least not in English. And we have, as a family, asked the state about renaming it before, but it's been a while. So it sounds like you might have some, if you do want to take that up as a social action project, you might have some allies among the family of the donors. And someone says, I think naming it after the place makes sense, but the native name would be a perspective shift. Yeah. Use the Aboriginal name, they named it first. So by Aboriginal name, are you saying the Aboriginal name of the creek? Because I think it was named, the battle, I think was probably named at the same time. The creek was sure named differently, and I don't know what the name of that creek was. Oh, I mean, but from the people who lived there first. So because, okay, so there's you think that it should be named because of the, what the Northern Cheyenne call it, because they were the ones that were there. Yeah. So just looking at these two pictures have given us some really fun things to think about. In the lesson plan that we use this is the first part. And in the second part of the lesson, the students become journalists and they interview, by which I mean they get paper or they get a worksheet that has notes on it, which maybe I'll bring over if I can. How can I do this so you guys can see it? Oh, I'm going to get rid of that for a minute and I'm going to bring over, it's only been 2 years on Zoom and I'm still not very good at it. No, that's not what I want to bring over. Oh, I want to bring this over. Am I bringing it over? I'm bringing over the lesson. Here we go. So can you see writing now on my screen? I'm hoping. Yes. Oh, thank goodness. All right. So everyone, there's 8 classes and everyone becomes a journalist, and they interview different people who were affected by this battle. And so they'll interview a Lakota warrior, they interview Buffalo Calf Road woman, they interview a Cheyenne elder, they interview a Lakota elder, they interview General Crook, a U.S. Army private, a miner, and a rancher. And just to give you a sense, and these interviews have very different perspectives, right? They're not actual interviews. They were written for the lesson to share different bits of history and different perspectives. So the Cheyenne elder is not Northern Cheyenne, actually it's Southern Cheyenne. It talks about the Sand Creek Massacre and how she lived through the Sand Creek Massacre and then came north to be with her relatives. And the Army private talks about being a poor immigrant from Denmark who joined the Army because he desperately needed a job. It was Mike's idea to make them journalists instead of having them like take on that character, because he was worried about people playing Indian. But really was a valid concern, but was really great about having them be journalists is you don't have to agree with the person's perspective that you are given. You simply have to try to represent it fairly. So just to give you a sense, let me read you one of these. So the interview with the Cheyenne elder is in 1851. We live far south of here. Our people had signed a treaty with the United States, but then gold seekers came onto our land. We wanted peace, so our chiefs signed a new treaty, giving up 2/3 of our territory. In May 1864, we were hunting buffalo when we saw soldiers approaching our camp. The chiefs Lean Bear and Star went to talk to them to assure them we were peaceful, but the soldiers shot them before they had a chance to speak. This was clearly an act of war. We didn't want war, but we were willing to fight to defend ourselves, and we did. After a few months, we went to meet with the Army at Fort Lyons to negotiate a peace agreement. We set up camp. Our chief, Black Kettle, flew an American flag over his lodge to show he wanted peace with the United States, but the soldiers attacked anyway. Most of our warriors were away when the attack came. The soldiers killed over 100 people, mostly women and children. I survived, but I lost my husband, my sister, and my child. I traveled north with other survivors. Our northern cousins took us in and comforted us as we mourned our dead. Life was good before the whites came to our country. I wish things could be like they were when I was a child. Game was plentiful before the whites came. A few months ago, soldiers attacked our camp along the Powder River. The soldiers burned our lodges, but our warriors were able to save our horses. After that fight, we joined with the Lakotas. During yesterday's battle, our warriors fought bravely. During the battle, I prayed for their success. So that would be one perspective. And just to give you a sense of like a totally different perspective, here's a minor. I came to Montana in 1866 over the Bozeman Trail. I was on the same train as the Thomases. I mention them because poor Charlie Thomas was only 8 years old when the Indians murdered him and his father, William. We traveled together in large trains for protection. The Indians attacked us on the trail, but the army was there to fight them off. Sadly, William decided we were moving too slowly. A week after William's wagon left our train, we found his body shot with 13 arrows. Charlie was shot 3 times. We buried them and placed a headstone. Charlie was a young innocent. He did not deserve to die. Neither did William, of course. All they wanted was a new life. So anyway, you get the idea that these are very, very different points of view on what's going on. And so students study one point of view, and then they meet with other people and share that, the point of view that they studied in groups.
And Martha, we're right at your time here.
Okay, well,
But any other advice or last words of wisdom you'd like to share with folks about the cool stuff you have at MHS?
yes, there is, which is to go to our website and go to resources for educators and go and check out all of the amazing stuff we have. And I've also given Jennifer some flyers with information about the different types of things we have. And this is just one example of a lesson. And I hope it was useful and you can at least take away the technique. So thank you so much for your time. I'm sorry I went over, but it was really.
No, you didn't go over it all. It's perfect, Martha. It was
All right,
just
well,
right.
thanks for stopping me. All right.
No, it was awesome. Yeah.